What are the best songs from Psalm 15? I'm Daniel Mount, joined today by Chad Berry, and we'll answer that question on today's episode of the Expository Songs podcast. We've each picked 3 songs, and we haven't compared notes. Pastor Chad, what's your number 3 song?
Yeah, so at number 3, I put the Corner Room's Psalm 15. The Corner Room is, I believe, the group that does strict versifications from the ESV.
Word for word. Yeah.
Word for word, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have a word for word in the list, and there were several, and I just felt like theirs was the best. They even have lyric videos for it on YouTube, so it would be very easy to teach to a congregation, and they do a really good job with it. So I put that one in at number 3.
Neat. My number 3 is Psalm 15 by Desert Springs Church. This text is a public domain text from a 1912 Psalter. It's not credited in that Psalter as to who wrote this. But verse 1 says, Who, O Lord, with thee abiding, in thy house shall be thy guest, who his feet to Zion turning in his holy hill shall rest. He that ever walks uprightly does the right without a fear. When he speaks not lightly, but with truth and love sincere. They introduced their melody, which as best as I can tell is a new one, in their 2011 album Psalterium Volume 1. It's a piano-driven arrangement with a real prominent cello, so it's predominantly piano-cello, but it has some strings as well in the chorus-like B sections.
So I'll just keep talking about that song because that's actually my number 2 pick.
Neat.
And the lyrics are really strong. What I liked about this song was it's what I would call kind of a true expository song, where it doesn't necessarily seek to just versify the words or go word for word, but it really builds on, what the text is saying and what the text is doing. And musically, it's really good. It is the piano piece is really beautiful. The melody is really pretty. It would be very easy to sing in just about any kind of setting. It really stood out to me. It's one that I listened to it quite a few times, and every time I listened to it, I was like, man, that's just a really good song.
It is really good, to the point that, if I can build on what you said, it's also kinda my number 2 song. Same lyric, different melody. This, though, is an older hymnal version, which I'm not sure if it was the first melody ever associated with this one, or just an early one, but it's definitely a long-running hymn association. And so it's titled "Who, O Lord, with thee abiding" in hymnals. And if you know your hymns really well, you might recognize the melody. I've linked this in the show notes. The melody is by Silas Vale, and the melody we know the melody better because we sing Fanny Crosby's hymn "Close to Thee" to this melody, or "Thou My Everlasting Portion" is the opening line. So I was probably written for the Fanny Crosby melody, but it fits this psalm lyric exceptionally well. I agree with what you said about how this lyric is truly expository, and in fact, this lyric is just so good that when I compared other lyrics to it, lyrics that in another psalm I may have had in the top 3 or top 5, this was just so good that some of the other lyrics I'm like, this isn't as good as "Who, O Lord, with thee abiding." And this song would probably be my pick for the retuning challenge, except that, spoiler alert, it's not, because we have 2 melodies that are really good for it. A modern one, and one that a hymn singing church like ours, a bunch of the people probably already know and fits the melody like a hand in a glove.
So that brings me to my number 1, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So my number 1 pick is "Your Holy Hill" by My Soul Among the Lions. Really, I could say everything that we just said about Desert Songs, Psalm 15, or Lord Who with Thee Abiding. And they just kind of take it and they step up another step, as seems to be fitting of My Soul Among the Lions. Melodically, the mood fits the mood of the psalm really, really well. the lyric is really, really good. Um, they just, as has become their custom, they really did an exceptional job with this one, to the extent that I've already downloaded their sheet music and printed it and plan to start working on it on the guitar, because it's their arrangement is predominantly a guitar driven arrangement, as is a lot of their arrangements. Guitar, banjo, upright bass. More folk bluegrassy style. But yeah, really, really excellent song.
Although I will say, this song would work perfectly fine for piano-led
Oh
congregation
yeah,
too.
oh yeah,
Like
definitely.
there are some songs like "Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus" that a pianist can play it. It sounds really good with a guitar.
Hmm.
There's just some songs that guitar led make a lot of sense more so than piano, and others piano led make more sense. This one is definitely recorded guitar led, but it worked perfectly fine in a piano setting.
Hmm.
And to no surprise, that was also my number one pick. So we had a lot of overlap in our top three this time. I like the way this is structured because sometimes strict versifications that stick really close to the lyric of a psalm don't have a chorus, but this one has a chorus that really works when you look at the flow of the whole psalm. It makes sense because verse 1 of the psalm says, Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle, who may dwell in your holy hill. And they took that opening verse as their chorus,
Hmm.
O Lord, who may abide in your tent, who may dwell in your holy hill, and then repeats those two lines again. And it takes that, but then each of the song's verses answers that question. It's a question that the rest of the psalm answers and
Hmm.
the other verses of the song answer. And
Hmm.
so I thought it was really well structured from the standpoint of there is a chorus that can help everybody remember it, but it's a chorus that makes sense for the psalm because it's posing the opening question in the psalm, opening question in the chorus. Each verse answers in the same way the verses of the psalm answer. It's a great melody and also a really well structured lyric.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that stood out to me as well. How they set it up almost as like an ask the question, answer the question with the refrain, just like the psalm does.
So, do you have any runners up?
Yeah, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a footnote for these runners up,
Sure.
because the top, obviously we did a top three instead of a top five,
Hmm.
because the fact of the matter is there just weren't a ton of really, really good, strong songs out of this psalm. But there were a handful that I had shared with you before we hit record. If I were really hard pressed to
Hmm.
to assemble, a list of songs, and I needed to plug a few in, basically the four runners up that I have are kind of like, that one could work. It's just not, there's a big gap between the top three and the runners up. So have that as a footnote. The ones that I put down were Who Shall Dwell on Your Holy Hill by A Common Salter, Never Be Shaken by Judy Rogers. I confess I'm a sucker for anything that has a Celtic feel to it, and that song definitely has a little bit of tin whistle and Celtic feel to it. Holy Hill by Jamie Souls, and Who May Abide with You by the Psalms Project.
I actually considered a number of those too, and several of those are really good. But in this case, I just felt like there were two just exceptional lyrics and three
Mm-hmm.
exceptional melodies
Mm-hmm.
that were so clearly the picks. That's why I suggested just stepping out of the usual format and
Yeah, yeah.
doing a top three on this one. So our last major element of the podcast is our retuning challenge, which are lyrics that we really like that could use a new melody. And do you have any songs for this challenge?
Yeah, I actually picked two. And
Okay.
so the first one was Lord, Who Shall to Thy Courts Repair by Francis Hopkinson.
Okay.
And now I confess the language in this particular song is same with the other one that I picked, is very archaic language, but it rings really good. The first two verses in this song read as follows: Who shall to thy courts repair, and crowned with bliss inhabit there? Oh, who shall find that late retreat, not stranger like a while to stay, as those who transient visits pay, but fix with thee a lasting seat? 'Tis he whose pure unspotted heart doth pure and spotless thoughts impart, whose deeds by rules of virtue move. 'Tis he whose words are soft and meek, whose generous tongue disdains to speak the things his heart doth not approve. It again, very archaic language in the way it's written, but I loved that second verse in particular, um, because of the connection to the heart and how it's not just a matter of do this and you get this, but we're able to be in the throne room of God because our hearts have been transformed by Christ. And from that transformed heart, then we, disdain gossip and we don't put money out at interest and all of those types of things. And so that really stuck out to me, the way that he captured the notion of the transformed heart.
Yes, so I have one. So I'll jump into my one, and then you can wrap this segment up. Mine is "Lord, Who Shall Come Before Thee" by John Scrimger. It's a relatively simple hymn based on the psalm, but in its simplicity, I thought it was sweet, and I thought it treated the psalm nicely. It says, "Lord, who shall come to thee and stand before thy face? Who shall abide a welcome guest within thy holy place? The man of upright life, sincere in word and deed, who slanders neither friend nor foe, no idle tales will heed. Who honors godly men, but scorns the false and vile, who keeps his promised word to all, though loss be his the while. Who loves not usury, nor takes a base reward, unmoved forever he shall be and stand before the Lord." It's a really simple treatment of the psalm, but in its simplicity, I think there's a real sweetness that suits the psalm nicely. And so I think it wouldn't hurt to have to somebody give it a new melody.
Yeah, definitely. The second one that I chose was "Who Shall Toward Thy Chosen Seat" by James Merrick, and actually very very similar reason to Hopkinson's piece is the pickup on the heart aspect. The last verse says this. It says, "He who thus with heart unstained treads the path be thee ordained, he, great God, shall own thy care and thy constant blessing share." And so just the eternal security of the soul that has been saved and washed clean. Maybe my mind was thinking about the resurrection and Easter Sunday and the crucifixion, and that was why these jumped out at me, but both of those really jumped out at me. And some of it too is I was listening to, I can't remember which song it was, but it was one of the songs that came out of the Catholic Church on Psalm 15. And as I was listening to it, this is not me leveling a criticism, because I do not think that this was their intention. At least I hope it wasn't. But as I was listening to the song, it kept ringing in my ears, the "he who does this, he who does this, he who does this, he who does this, he's the one that gets to dwell with the Lord." And I'm like, yes, but we do those things because God has changed our hearts. And that's the reflection of the inward change that God has brought through the blood of Christ. And so I really loved how these two songs in particular picked up on that aspect.
Thank you. And I will say just a quick programming note for anybody who is listening and maybe scratch their head a little bit at one thing. We're recording this a few days before Easter, Resurrection Sunday, and Lord willing, planning to post it a few days after Resurrection Sunday. So just a little bit of context there.
Yeah, glad you said that. I didn't think about that.
No problem. So Pastor Chad, I know you have a lot of things you're juggling. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. Can you give your book a shout out?
Yeah, sure thing. So Ecclesiastes, an answer key to life's big questions. It's available on Amazon, or as I always say, if you just contact Daniel through the show, I'll get you a copy for free.
Thank you so much. And to the listener, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and subscribe to catch future episodes. You can also find past episodes in the free 78,000 entry Expository Songs searchable database at expositorysongs.com. Thank you for listening.